Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about a key factor that could make or break Collingwood for the next few years, and it does not tend to involve the current trade period and the outcome of it. It's time to talk all things black and white. Ladies and gentlemen, so right now we are in the midst of the trade period, and I just want to zoom out and look at some other critical factors or factor that will heavily dictate where Collingwood stand in the next couple of years. And I just don't want us to fall in love with this trade period in particular, given how skinny the free agency market is and players who are willing to move. And when you also add to the point or to the fact that Collingwood don't have strong draft picks, I know we have two future firsts available, but they are in compromised drafts. So with that in mind, I want to talk about in particular, the third and fourth year players going into their next season for Collingwood in 2026. I think that's a massive conversation and will have a massive impact on what our team looks like and whether we slide or fall off a cliff, as some would say, in the next coming years. So talking about the national draft of 2022, 2021, and maybe we can even go into the depths of 2023. So we're looking at players. Let's start with even as recent as Rowan Steele and Ned Long, who are mid-season draftees and they're diamonds in a rough. And these kinds of players are the ones you're kind of hoping that are able to take the next step. Now, Ned Long has taken some massive long strides in 2025 and had a massive first half to his season, experienced a bit of a form slump alongside with the rest of the team, and then had a massive qualifying final and then was pretty quiet in the prelim. So if you look at the trend of the way Ned Long went this year, you'd be pretty happy as a Collingwood fan, but you want to believe that Ned Long can take another step. There has to be another step for Ned Long. We were talking star potential early in the year with his form, so hopefully he can live up to those expectations. And then Rowan Steele, when he's come on as a sub, he has looked very comfortable at AFL level and his distribution is going to be highly regarded within the four walls. His ability to hit targets forward of centre is a massive asset for a league where good kicking is good footy. So that's on Rowan Steele and Ned Long. And Ned Long will be 23 next year and Rowan Steele will be 24. He's 01. He'll be 25 next year, whereas Ned Long will be 23. So still young, right? And then you look at the next group of players, Will Parker, who's 22 this year, Finlay McRae, who are both, not Finlay McRae because he's delisted. That is exactly what we don't want to happen to these next group of players and to experience what Finlay McRae went through. I'm not saying he was hard done by, but I felt like he had high expectations going into season 2024. It was his big year, and unfortunately, he failed in a big way. Now, some of you may remember there were times where we just felt like McRae probably deserved an opportunity early in the season when his preseason form was unbelievable, and you could just there was a feeling, there was a vibe around the club. When you go to training, when you go to the intra clubs and the prackies, he just seemed like he was on and destined for a spot inside the midfield. Unfortunately, that did not transpire. And now he's delisted. So you throw in Reef McInnes, who's from the same draft, 2020, along with Beau McCreary. I think there was who was that? That was Beau McCreary. That was a part of it as well, which has been a raging success. But you got Reef in that same group, who is now entering his fourth year technically in the league. Coming off an ACL, I understand we must give this guy time and trust that, okay, he's coming from an ACL, he's had a massive position change, he's putting on some muscle in the gym, so he's not sitting on his hands while going through the ACL rehab recovery process. But it's another player that will heavily dictate where we go in the next couple of years, especially when you factor in Darcy Moore, Bruzzy, Jeremy Howe, these types of players are only getting older and older in the back line, even throwing Billy Frampton, who is closer to 30 than one would think. The next group of players from 2022 draft, so they will be entering their third year into the system. Or 2022, 23, 24, 25, fourth year of the system. Therefore, Ed Allen would be entering his fifth. Reef would be entering his fifth, so apologies there. So fourth year players in Ed Allen, Jacob Ryan in particular. These types of players, Ed Allen has had opportunities this year and pretty much lived the same sort of timeline of Finlay McRae in the preseason. There was big hopes, especially after his massive game against Melbourne at the end of 2024. So that was, did it do him any favors by heightening the expectations? I'm not too sure. And while he won the best young player at the Copeland Trophy night, I think there was still a little bit more left to be decided. At least that was my opinion. And I feel like a big working point for Ed Allen is his kicking ability. He's being 6'4". He may be fast in straight lines, but to be able to break out of stoppage or twist and turn on a dime, he doesn't quite have that. And then the kicking is a bit of an issue. And then you throw in, when he has played at AFL level, he's been playing on a wing as an outside player. And typically as an outside player, you're expected to be quite good by foot. And then when he's playing in the VFL, he's playing true to his role, which is an inside mid. So it's been a bit of a difficult one to navigate around. But at the end of the day, you just have to think, well, is he doing enough to earn that position as an inside midfielder? And hopefully if he can put on some size and work on his footballing ability with ball in hand in the off-season / preseason, then maybe we can see a real return from Ed Allen. And then the next few players you have Jacob Ryan, who fell or succumbed to injury throughout the VFL season, was having a really consistent season. And maybe if he hadn't gotten injured, he may have had an opportunity over Will Parker later in the season. So that's another player who's going into year 4. And then you go into the year 3s, right? So you got TJ, you got Ilaru Smith, and you got Demeter. Now, TJ also had succumbed to injury this year and has missed a large portion of the VFL season. Played a game against North Melbourne in his first season in the AFL system. That's another player who is a medium-sized defender and could be quite versatile, could play a wing like his brother CJ. That's another close eye. These types of players are the players that need to take us and ensure that our bottom 6 players are strong players, strong role players at the very least when they come into the side. Obviously, the expectations for players like Ed Allen, Ned Long, Harvey Harrison, who also had an ACL injury, is someone we're really hopeful that they can become great players for the club. But then you're asking players like TJ and Jacob Ryan, can they be good role players for the club? Ilaru Smith from the same year, albeit through the mid-season draft, is probably the player I'm least excited about at this moment. He played a lot of defense this season in the VFL, despite being drafted as a ruckman. Now, maybe they're trying to teach him defensive craft so he can be that defensive half intercepting ruckman like a prototype of Darcy Cameron. So I do see that potentially, but being a ruckman, it's hard to get excited or to get a grasp of a player when they're incredibly raw to the game with their skill set, right? And then you throw in Oscar Steen, who has shown some really good signs. He was brought into the system in the preseason supplementary period in 2022. He's 21. He'll be 22 next year. He's definitely ahead of Ilaru Smith, and I think he has a big opportunity next year. If Mason Cox isn't going to be there and we want to play a 2-ruck system, I think Oscar Steen has a great opportunity to be a decent ruck forward in the league, but we will know more once he is exposed to the AFL system. The final 2 draft crops I want to talk about are Demeter is another one there, along with Ilaru and TJ. Demeter is a big one, won the VFL Best and Fairest, started as a halfback flanker, played wing early in the season, but then when you had Finlay McRae injured, Lockie Sullivan playing in the AFL, Ed Allen playing AFL. Tom Mitchell was injured for the most part and playing AFL at times. It gave an opportunity for Di Mattia to play inside mid and is a real clearance, contested beast with really good burst. I think he just needs to work on his kicking ability as well, much like Ed Allen. So there's a lot of expectation for Di Mattia as well, going into his third year into the system now. And then we go into the final draft crop being Noah House with the mid-season draft this year, Charlie West, Joel Cochran, and Will Hayes. Charlie West is probably on the top of the list as far as optimism is concerned. With the season he had in the VFL, dominating AFL-listed players, playing at VFL level, and also having an opportunity to play against the West Coast Eagles. Unfortunately, then falling short in the season due to a foot injury. This is the guy that is going to take us to, or keep us at the level, along with potentially players like Ned Long, Ed Allen, and hopefully Harry Di Mattia. Those players I'm most excited about. And then Will Hayes had an incredible preseason. He played 2 AFL games, is extremely electric, composed, great user by foot, and is a goal sneak. Had some really good games in the VFL, had some quiet moments, as you do as a small forward who is young, who is not built into their body yet. This is someone we'll keep a close eye on and hopefully will be a really good role player in the AFL system. And then lastly, Joel Cochran is another player who, while he didn't get the same eyes that Charlie West and Will Hayes got, particularly early in the year in the preseason due to injury, Joel Cochran was outstandingly consistent in the VFL for his age, for what we expect from a pick 47 in the national draft coming from the Sydney Academy side. I think this guy, real versatile weapon, 6'6", speedy, great endurance, and if he can complement his game with the ability to break lines while also being able to defend aerially really well, I think this guy can be a real weapon. So these players just mentioned are going to be the players that are going to play a massive role in realizing what our bottom half of our list is going to look like. Because if you lose the veterans, who's going to step in? Who's going to complement Nick Dacos, Josh Dacos, Quaynor, Bobby Hill, these types of players? So if you can throw in Charlie West in the forward line, if you can throw in Di Mattia, Ed Allen into the midfield, if you can throw in a Joel Cochran there and a Jacob Ryan or whoever it may be, it goes a long way. We can't keep failing with these national draft picks. You've seen great success in players like Bo McCreary coming in through the national draft. But most of our work is done through the rookie draft, the mid-season draft, the preseason supplementary period. I'm thinking Jack Ginnivan. I'm thinking Mason Cox. I'm thinking Ned Long. I'm thinking Rowan Steele. I'm thinking Will Parker. I'm thinking, I said Jack Ginnivan. I'm just looking at the list now. Let me just pop that back up to see who's on the list through other means. Ash Johnson was successful at times. And then also trade period, absolute trade steals, looking at players like Billy Frampton, Patrick Lipinski, Harry Perryman, Tim Membry, Dan Houston. The jury's still out on that one. Tom Mitchell was a absolute hidden gem. Brody Myercheck was a rookie draft acquisition. And then if you want to go as far back as Jeremy Howe, this is how we've been able to stay relevant and very competitive for the large part of the last 10, 20 years, right? So if we can hit with the national draft with some of these later picks that we've had access to, then that goes a long way in ensuring we don't fall off a cliff and drop out into the bottom 4 of the league. So let me know what your thoughts are on this matter. And if you want to discuss certain players, go ahead, enter the comment section, and we'll go from there. I appreciate you all. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, go Pies.